About criticism, we just briefly want to talk about some skill sets for surviving and enduring through kind of the regular tolerance, the daily. About criticism, we just briefly want to talk about some skill sets for surviving and enduring through kind of the regular tolerance, the daily tolerance. We called it the white noise in the last episode, the white noise of constant criticism. One of the principles that I want to get at here may not be our favorite, but actually is this principle of building up a healthy tolerance. And one of the only ways that you build a healthy tolerance is by actually just like tolerating criticism. It's like learning how to lift heavier weights or learning how to tolerate cold temperatures. The only way to do it is actually to just like jump in and be a part of that. And so let me just invite you into the water. Sorry for the metaphor there, but part of being in leadership is to experience criticism and learn how to navigate that and also just recognize that it becomes, I guess the metaphor that sometimes uses, you get tough skin and yet you also want a soft heart. So there's some tension that is there. So a couple tools that I want to encourage you when it comes to this then come from the next two principles. Number one is at times it's important for you to learn how to retreat. And I don't mean retreat in fear. I do mean retreat in the sense of like how Jesus often retreated to lonely places and prayed. We also see this in the life of other key leaders, obviously throughout Scripture. For myself, I've recognized that a geographic retreating of actually getting out of the situation and the community can actually be helpful. Oftentimes, you see Jesus on a mountain and he's retreating and he's able to look back. And sometimes like retreating even literally to higher ground and looking back over the community or the place where you are separates you enough to see things with literal perspective, but also metaphorically helps you gain perspective. I found it intriguing. Sometimes I would leave the church community or the local community where I was receiving criticism, and I'd recognize like not everyone saw me that way. In fact, not even everyone recognized me. In fact, I could be separate from the people in that situation and be completely anonymous. And in that sense, sometimes that was helpful to humanize and also localize the problem, to recognize this is not a global issue. The world's not falling, the sky's not falling, and it will be okay. So putting things in perspective, retreating can help put us in perspective. The other thing it helps us do is to rest. We actually need at times to Sabbath or sabbatical to gain some healthy perspective and rest. Sometimes it's helpful to just sleep. And in that sleep or in that separation, to allow some things to mend and heal and trust God in that rest or in that process of not trying to fix it, for God to move and bring healing and reconciliation. So I've also recognized that in my own life, there's a difference between productive rest and counterproductive rest. That counterproductive rest is oftentimes the kinds of rest that I do that actually amp up my anxieties and fears. These look different for lots of different people, but sometimes I can have rest that technically is a day off, but actually it doesn't help me mentally or relationally rest from the situation. The same thing would be true when it comes to the rhythms of rest. And we could talk about Sabbath as well, other places, and we have, but you're going to need to do this daily, weekly, and seasonally. Those regular rhythms of rest and retreat that we dealt with in module 1 and 2 can actually help you deal with criticism in a positive way. You can actually trust that God is working in the process of the moment of rest. Now, put that in tension. The Bible teaches us not to let the sun go down while we're angry. And so we don't want to prolong this or just sweep it under the rug. But at the same time, sometimes it is good for you to heal and mend from this constant exposure, this white noise of criticism that comes your way. So hold that in wisdom and discernment. Here's number 3. You also need to then surround yourself with trusted friends who, can criticize you, but also will speak gospel truth to you. So healthy friendships, ministry partners, experienced mentors, and expert role models. They might not be a mentor, but there's someone like, for instance, you're going to listen to the podcast, or maybe even the content you're hearing from me. Listen to those voices that can help you navigate the terrain of criticism and this constant grumbling that Moses and Aaron had to deal with in the wilderness, that Jesus had to deal with as he's feeding people bread. And they come to him and they're still hungry and they're still complaining. This is part of what it means to be a leader of God's people. So I want you to be healthy in navigating this. I want to normalize it. And in some regard, I want to, create some skill sets in you, or at least some categories for you, so that you can process this in a wise and discerning way.